Today, we're going to be going over the route running of one of the top route runners in the NFL, CeeDee Lamb. So these are some of the best routes, best releases that he had from the 2023-2024 season. And the first one we're going to be looking at here is this 10-yard out route that he is running versus an outside leverage off-man coverage DB. This is a very, very tough route to run versus this specific coverage look. But the way Lamb does this makes it look extremely easy. So let's play at full speed and then we'll break it down. So he comes off the ball and he uses this kind of like hesitation skip into a jab at the top of the break, right? So this hesitation skip is something you're going to see pop out consistently throughout this video. It's probably the favorite move that I would say he uses throughout all of his routes off the line of scrimmage at the top of the break. So why does this work? So when we have to run a 10-yard out and we have a DB who's sitting outside leverage, maybe about 7 yards away, and my break's at 8 to 10, I would say, and he's sitting right at the break point, I obviously don't want to try to get to the outside of him and force an outside release. Ideally, I would love an outside release or would love to get to the outside and have this DB on my inside hip anytime I'm running an outside breaking route. But if he's outside leverage, he is there for a reason. He is there to prevent the outside release and to prevent the outside route. So what you would want to do is you don't want to try to just get around him, because if he just widens and squeezes you to the sideline, you don't have much room for the quarterback to throw you open. That's not a great route. We're not running a quarterback-friendly route. What we want to do is we want to attack his inside shoulder and inside hip, and the goal would be to get him to bite on some type of inside fake. If we're in the open field, maybe not the red zone, maybe I push vertical and I run hard at his inside shoulder and hip to get him to flip open, but the goal is to slip underneath him. And the reason why we want to slip underneath is just so the quarterback has room to lead us. Now, CeeDee Lamb gets very, very creative with this move at the top of the break. A lot of receivers, what they do, like I said, they'll just push vertical. They try to get this DB to open up his hips, and then they drop their hips and slip under. A lot of receivers, what they'll do, you see guys like Cooper Kupp do this all the time. They'll do some type of like rocker step fake, which is where essentially they step outside, then fake inside, like they're running a post, get him to bite, and then slip underneath. But Lamb uses this like hesitation skip like we talked about. So a hesitation skip is essentially like a double step. It could be on your inside foot, it could be on your outside foot, but it's where like instead, like obviously when you're running, right? So like let's say you step with your right foot, the next step that you take is with your left foot, obviously, right? Basic, very, very simple. A hesitation skip is where you would step with your right foot and then step with your right foot again before the left foot goes down. So you would step right, right, left. And the left step would be like that jab step, if you will. So that's that hesitation move that he uses. So he comes off here, steps with the right foot plants, and then when that right foot plants, he pushes off of it to sell like he's running this inside route, inside fake. Maybe it's a post, maybe it's an in, whatever the case may be, and that's what gets that DB to jump. So that's why he attacked at that angle, and that move is a very creative move that you guys can use to sell an inside route, similar to a rocker step or just a hard jab to the inside. But moral of the story is we got to give the quarterback room to throw us open, and that's why Lamb is one of the best at this, because he runs efficient routes, but he's very, very creative with his routes. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we'll get into some of his other best routes throughout this 2023 season. So now, this next route here is a route that I'm sure all of you have seen before. He is using something called a triple rocker step move at the top of the break, and he is running a post route, again, versus off-man coverage. Now, before I play this clip full speed, you guys, if you're a wide receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we are going to be coming out to 11 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to Portland, Oregon, then Dallas, then Nashville, Chicago. All of those camps, you guys, are completely sold out, just like the first 4 that we had this year, and the rest on this side of the screen will sell out. So guys, if you want to take advantage of this, check out that very first link in the description below. We're coming out to Buffalo, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles. All of these camps will be unavailable to attend probably within the next month and a half, 2 months. So guys, we'd love to have you there. Check out that very first link in the description below. If you are interested, again, would love to have you out to one of our 2-day-long camps. Let's get back to this video. So now, I'm taking a look at this looking from CeeDee Lamb. He's using this triple rocker step move like we said. So he's got a DB who's lined up in head up, off-man coverage. So what do I mean by head up, right? So we talked about the last example, how we had a DB who was lined up outside leverage, right? So that means that he is shaded to the outside. He has outside leverage. Goal, don't let the receiver run to the outside. Sometimes what you'll have is you'll have a DB who's lined up inside leverage, like where he's shaded a little bit to the inside. Instead of lined up here, he's just shifted over to the inside. That's inside leverage. His goal, don't give up the inside route. But when we have a DB who's lined up in head up, essentially just right in front of me, maybe about 7 to 8 yards off, maybe 10 yards off, I kind of have a two-way option. I could go to break to the inside, I could break to the outside, depending on the given route. Now, Lamb uses that triple rocker step move at the top to be able to get separation. So why does he use this move? Because it looks a lot like how he runs his out routes, right? And this is what a lot of receivers do. Some of the top tier route runners in the NFL. Look at like a guy like Devontae Adams, who's been at the top of the game for a while. Off the line of scrimmage, what is he famous for? He's famous for that little hesitation slide, right? And then sometimes he'll do that little hesitation, bam, put the brakes on and go run a slant. He makes his routes and his releases look the same. You could do the exact same thing at the top of the route. And that's something that Lamb is so good at. So at the top of the break, a normal rocker step is where you step in the direction you are going first. It's essentially just a 1-2 at the top of the break, right? Like a crossover move off the line. So a regular rocker step, if you were running an out route, would start with your left foot. So you step hard with the left foot, you fake like you're going back to the inside with the right foot, and then you run this out route, trying to build off of a post, set up the out. Now, disciplined DBs and smart DBs will watch a lot of film, and they will see, oh, when he takes that first hard step, if we're using a rocker step on every cut, they can almost anticipate where we're going, right? So if I only cut using that rocker step, if I only use that 1-2 every single time, what do you think a DB is going to do the second he sees me step hard? He's going to sit to the side of the step. He's going to anticipate that I'm just doing that rocker step move, and he's going to try to ultimately guess. Smart DBs will do this all the time if receivers make their routes too predictable. So what Lamb does is he adds an extra step. So instead of just doing a 1-2, he does a 1-2-3 to sell like he is going to the out route, gets that DB to jump, and now we got space on the post route. Now, the key here, guys, on this move is you have to make sure that we use it in the right scenario, right? This is not a quick off-man coverage bang 8 post. This is probably a bang 8 post, or not even a bang 8 post. This is just a regular post route where, you know, the quarterback is probably looking at a first read, maybe he's looking off the free safety, and then he's coming back to Lamb, so we have a little bit of time. But do not use this if it's a post where that ball is supposed to be out quickly, because we will lose timing with my quarterbacks. This is a great move here from Lamb, this triple rocker step, great example of how you guys can pair your routes and pair your releases together. So now, let's take a look at this next move here. So this is going to build off of that like hesitation skip that we talked about in the very beginning of this with that out route break. So this is more so like a release off the line of scrimmage. So he's got a DB who's lined up outside leverage, maybe about 2 to 3 yards off, right? So when I have a DB who's 2 to 3 yards off and I have to run any type of route, whether that's like a seam route, whether that's a post route, whether I'm running a corner route, number one thing is I obviously want to get him to hold his leverage to the outside. I want to attack his leverage, but also what I want to do is I want to close the distance with him, right? I want to try to step onto his toes and close the space. So he does this hesitation skip split release, as we call it. So I'm going to play this full speed, and then we'll talk about it. So he comes off the ball, a little skip, and then he hits him with this split release to freeze the DB. So a split release is probably something, I'm going to play at full speed one more time. It's probably something you guys have seen off the line of scrimmage, not so much at the top of the break or like mid-route. I would say it's mid-route, not so much top of the route, but mid-route. But this is a great example of a release that he's comfortable with and applying it in different situations. Like my best piece of advice for receivers when it comes to press releases, moves off the line of scrimmage, is that you don't want to have like 80 different things that you could do off the ball. You want to have 5 to 6 things that you're comfortable with that you could use in different scenarios, right? So like let's say you're comfortable with just like a jab step, right, with your left foot. So if that DB's pressed up right up on the line of scrimmage and he's outside leverage, you could just throw a jab step and then go into your release. That's totally fine. You don't need to get too fancy with it. Now, when this DB's 2 to 3 yards off like this, what could you do? You could close the space with him, then throw the jab step, bring the line of scrimmage to him. So CeeDee Lamb probably likes using this split release, right? A split release is essentially where you bring your inside foot out and your back foot up. So inside foot steps out, outside foot steps up. So you're not splitting your feet. You're not stepping way outside with both feet. Inside foot steps out, back foot or outside foot steps up, and you split for a second. Both cleats hit the grass at the exact same time. This is a great release to use when you have a press coverage guy because you could ultimately release either way. If this was just press coverage right up on the line of scrimmage and he does this split, let's say this DB jumps to the inside, we could put the brakes on and just take an outside release because both of my cleats are in the grass. They call this coming to balance. Some people just straight up call this a coming to balance release. A lot of older school wide receiver coaches call it that, right? So he uses this because he's comfortable with it, right? He closes the space of the DB, then he hits the split. He brings the line of scrimmage to him, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's exactly what he's thinking because I don't know what he's thinking, but that's pretty clear on film that that's a release that he likes to use, and he likes to use that hesitation skip. So it's about choosing things that you're comfortable with. So again, you see how he steps double with the right foot, right? He takes that little hop step with the right foot. Instead of going right, left, he goes right, right, then split. So that's a textbook hesitation split release there that you could use on this DB. That's the reasoning why, and that's why wide receivers want to be comfortable with the releases that they are using. So now, when I'm talking about press releases here, this is another aspect of Lamb's game that he is very, very elite at, and so many top-tier wide receivers have this in common, especially the top-tier route runners. They are able to react within their routes. So what do I mean by that? As a receiver, we obviously have to have a plan off the line of scrimmage. I got a DB who's lined up inside shade. I'm going to try to do this type of release, and then I'm going to try to get up into my route like so. But sometimes DBs are crafty individuals, or sometimes they may not play the way we think they're going to play, right? So we have to be able to react as a receiver. We have to be able to react on the fly. So this is a great example of that from CeeDee Lamb. So he's running a post route versus an inside shade, like kind of catch technique DB, which is a tough look for a lot of wide receivers, but let's talk about it. So some of you might be thinking, well, coach, I've watched your videos before. Whenever you see an inside leverage guy, you always say you want to attack him inside and then release to the outside. And that's usually for the most part correct, right? I have a DB who's lined up inside leverage. His goal is don't let us release to the inside. So when we come off the ball, remember, we have 2 yards of space. What do we want to do with that space and with the line of scrimmage? We want to close the space and bring the line of scrimmage to him, right? So when we attack him, what we're thinking is that this DB is going to start to keep his leverage to the inside, and then I take that outside release. My goal is to stack him where he's trailing my back hip, or we're running right next to each other, and at the break point, I could slip under him and use that like throw-by move, right? But if that DB doesn't move and he doesn't keep his leverage and you square him up like this and he doesn't move, just take off and go. If he's going to give you that inside release, ideally, I would love an inside release. So this is a perfect example of not being married to the release that you were choosing. You never want to be married to a move. You never want to think, okay, I have to do this no matter what, regardless of what the DB does, then I'm going to go. You want to be able to react. This is why it's important for receivers train reactionary drills. Like I love doing drills with my receivers where I'll set up like just simple like hurdles or cones. I'll have them do some footwork in between the cones or over the cones. And when I clap my hands, they have to reverse and go the opposite way. Just training that reaction helps you in this type of situation with the DB, right? So you go attack him, you square him up, he just gives it to you, fine, let's take it. If that DB jumps to the inside, okay, cool. Let's throw maybe a move. That was maybe my initial plan, and then I release to the outside. This is a great situation or a great situation for you guys to learn from here from CeeDee Lamb when it comes to taking what a DB gives you and not being afraid to react.